Hi, this is Spud TV, and I'm John Cornett. My friend is Chris Myers.
Maze.
Mays, I'm
Yep.
saying Mays. I'm sorry. I'm just going to let you introduce yourself.
It's all right.
And this, of course, is Spud TV. Everything in Idaho with Bud on it, or anything in Kuna with gravy. I have to say goodbye to my guest, to my other host, Wendy. She teased me on my own show, so I wasn't very happy. And we had a little snipping afterwards. I feel bad because I already thought she was cool. She'll be always one of my old saints. I'll do a tribute. If I don't get sued, I'll do a tribute after the show, well, after the closing of this interview. Now, Chris, do you remember when we first met? You were working for Mays, you came to my house?
I was working for Edward Jones, that's correct. Came to your house, and I'm there in Kuna.
Right.
What can I tell you? Yeah, we've had a history, and we've talked, had some stories that we've had together, and we've discussed my history.
And where are you from? What country are you from? Are you American?
I'm not. I am a permanent resident from Canada originally.
Do you really have a green card?
It's actually pink.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Real men have pink.
That's right. So anyway, yeah. So my history of my family, I was how I got here.
Uh-huh.
I was born in Canada. Ended up having a scholarship for football in the U.S. in North Dakota.
And where'd you play?
I played in North Dakota. Played running back. I came to Boise State. Finished up there. Got my finance degree there.
Okay, and that's how you got a job with Edward Jones.
Edward Jones, yeah, I was working for them. But my family is spread out over 3 countries. The majority of my family is in Canada. My parents and 4 of my siblings. There's 7 kids. I have a sister in France who's a bobsledder for Canada.
Cool.
She's now was working on the French program. Brother played NFL for 6 years, All-Pro, Rookie of the Year. And also lives in Eugene. He's a fundraiser. So.
Oh, that's nice. Someday maybe I have to have him on my show.
Yeah,
right.
maybe we could actually. So.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to have a band set up for this show. It was Dakota Bad Band out of New Frontier Bar in Meridian. But I didn't have a car at the time, and I asked them if they could give me a ride. They go, oh, our lead worker's sick. So I want everybody to know they're a great band, and I'm one who doesn't really like music, and people that know me, they'll say, wow, they must stand out. But luckily, my friend, I was going to different people around Kuna to get them to volunteer, and you were telling me an exciting story about your family. So have you always been Canadians?
No. So we're only a few generations into Canada, and where my great-great-grandparents left the United States in.
Why?
They were freed as slaves through the Emancipation.
Uh-huh. You mean they're originally from Africa?
Originally from Africa.
I think you guys were Irish.
So Afro-Irish. So what transpired is they were born. My great-great-grandfather and great-great-grandmother were born in Georgia, and then were freed as slaves. So they went to Oklahoma, in the Indian Territory, and were farming there. Them and other freed slaves as well.
They had their own little community,
own communities, and they were farming until the land was given to they took the land from the Indians and made it to a state. Yeah, so they had problems with racism there, and so they left.
Well, now that little bit that you gave me, that was like around 1910, 1911, right?
It was my 1910 is when they came to Canada from the United States. What happened is they sold their farms in Oklahoma, and 20 families from there took a train from Oklahoma to Winnipeg, Manitoba, and then they migrated west from there.
Well, that's kind of interesting. Now, Canada, they were always part of the British Empire. They didn't have a revolution, right? But they're more autonomous, right?
Yeah, they are autonomous. They still have Queen. The Queen is still, she's still the Queen over Canada. But she's more of a figurehead. She doesn't have any authority really.
She just calls Parliament in session, or
not even that. So we're pretty independent from the.
And so, you guys have a two-tier government, right? I mean, you have a chief executive, of course, like ours. You have
we have a prime minister,
right?
And then and the rest of it's pretty much set up the same. There's the prime minister of Canada has a lot less power than the president.
Well, he's part of the legislative body, isn't he?
That's correct. So if they had a vote of confidence, he filled that vote. That vote could come at any time, to replace him as a leader.
Well, that's interesting. Well, I'm glad that we don't have that in our country because I like Obama. So now your family, they had to deal with a lot of racism in the States?
They did. First, as slaves, then they were sharecroppers.
Well, wasn't your great-grandmother and granddad born slaves?
They were born slaves, yep. And then they, like I said, they were my great-grandmother Mattie Mays and my great-grandfather Joseph Mays. They, like I said, they came to Canada in 1910.
Mm-hmm.
They started farming, had a sod house. They were given free land. So basically the situation was Canada was concerned that the United States might take Western Canada. So they're giving away the land. If you were to break the land, what was that?
We always wanted to make Canada the 51st state of the United States, you know.
So almost did. So what happens is they're either giving the land if you broke it, or there's $2 per acre.
That's not bad.
So the families, they went from Manitoba. Some settled in Manitoba. Some settled in Saskatchewan. Most settled in Alberta. So we still have our farm there in Maidstone, Saskatchewan.
Okay. Now, were these African American Canadian communities, or were they just open to everybody that grew up? I mean,
open to everybody, but they, the Canadian, the blacks that came from the African Americans that came from the U.S., they worked together on their farms. Shared equipment, shared, food, etc. in their communities.
Yeah, some of the stories that little article that you gave me that was the men would go out and forage for food or whatever, and then they kind of shared, and then the women would go and hunt gophers and sell.
Well, they did many things back then. Just basically to survive. There was cold winters, 40, 50 below in the wintertime.
Cold.
And but our farm that we have, they were farmers. We had cows, chickens, pigs, grain farmers.
Mm-hmm.
So
they were like entrepreneurs too, though, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, just as far as in that climate, it's a very difficult climate, and when it gets that cold, you're outside, you could die. I mean, it's no joke. So
my mom grew up in Aspen, Colorado, and she had stories about how she's still alive, but she doesn't tell them as much. But how cold it was, and how they had to be prepared for the cold winters. There was only 2 seasons there, winter and summer, and the summer's like a month.
That's what they say in Canada also.
So, but now this is kind of interesting. So did you have your own little, now is Canada like little cities with their own mayors and stuff? I mean, our political system is a lot alike, right? So
Yeah, it's very similar. There's a lot of things in the U.S. they do that we don't do. In Canada, a vote's a vote. Whoever has the most votes for whoever the prime minister is, that's who win. There's no electoral college and these types of things. It's if the prime minister wins by 1 vote, he's the prime minister.
Now, isn't there a royal regent or something, somebody that answers to the Queen that's over Canada too?
The Queen's basically, like I said, she's just a figurehead.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to go to, I was in London last year, and if you were to go to London, there's no, how they have the places for asylum, political asylum and things like that. There isn't one for Canada, and the reason why is because we're still under the British crown.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you could go to England without a passport?
No, you would not be able to. But they still are, basically we're part of the Commonwealth also.
If something happens to the mother country, you guys are always there to
help
defend
them
her.
out. Yeah, that's correct.
That's something. But now you were talking about the Indian Territory. Of course, we all know how that was formed, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Jackson was president, and he pushed all the
natives
over the indigenous
Native
people
Americans.
in Oklahoma on the Trail of Tears. And as a Democrat, I have to apologize for that because he was our Democrat president. I'm not always happy with our party history, but we have to be mindfully aware of what's going on. We have to always take a correct view of history because I think we learn from the past, don't you?
I agree with that. I mean, life is not always fair, and history is not always fair. I mean, it's just you deal with the situations that you have, and you try to do the best you can with those situations and change them if you can.
Now you said Canada didn't have slavery ever.
Actually, I was wrong. They did have slavery, and I was under the impression, but with Canada there was initially, but when Britain outlawed slavery in the 1830s. It was abolished in Canada also, but it was never like it was in the United States.
Yeah, well, slavery didn't really. If you notice, the northern states didn't have really a lot of slavery. They were more manufacturing. It only helped in the South when they had the cotton gin developed, and they started having great plantations where they needed a lot of mass labor, cheap labor.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, vast history of slavery in the South, and it's just it's interesting. So
It's a dark side. In fact, a lot of the founders of the Democrat Party were slave owners. Thomas Jefferson was a slave owner, and he wrote the Declaration of Independence, which is really counter to slavery. And in fact, slavery helped break up the Democrat Party for a long time and gave a foot for the Republican Party to be formed. So there's a little history there, and there'll be a 10-point quiz tomorrow. I'm joking.
all right.
But then your family now. Do you think their outcome would have been different if they stayed in the States? I mean,
Who's to say how? Obviously,
it's conjecture.
It'd be a lot different. Obviously, Canada has been it's been good for our family. I mean, I love the United States. That's why I'm here. Idaho's a fantastic state. I mean, I don't know if you could see it all in a lifetime, all of Idaho. So,
I don't know. There's a lot.
I've seen a lot of Canada. I've seen a lot of the United States.
Sounds like you've seen a little bit of Europe too.
And Europe, yeah. And so I've been around, and there's positive and negatives about each country.
Oh yeah.
And so you really have to balance and find out what you can live with, what you can't live with, and what suits you and your family the best, basically.
Yeah, that's true. That's just like you're saying when you're financing, you have to set your own personal goals, right? And try to
work within those. Yeah.
The correct intention to be a good parent,
good citizen. That's one of the main things that I learned in my college years.
Now, how's the school system up in Canada? You have elementary school, junior high school.
Same type of setup. It's a little bit different as far as the funding goes. It's more on a national tax basis. Here, it's more on a municipal level where you live in this area, you have this school.
Right.
Canada, it's federal dollars. So even if you live in, say, a poor area, doesn't mean you're going to have less funded education.
Yeah. So that's good though. It balances out.
It seems to work for Canada. I mean, I really put a lot of value into my education. I think it gave me a good foundation as to I have a finance degree. It wasn't easy. It was a lot of work, but it gave me a good foundation for some of the things that I needed to get through that journey, as far as how to study and some of the basics as far as education.
I can see how a national school system is beneficial. A lot of the people on the other side of our political system are trying for more local control, but sometimes I can see how, like in Texas, they're actually cherry picking certain textbooks that put a particular view across that are not always accurate, maybe, more political agenda.
Those are difficult questions, and you'd have to look at those things individually. I understand business finance. I'm not as so rehearsed in the education system.
But you've seen the two differences. You've seen the results.
I have seen the differences, and we had an exchange student a couple of years ago from Berlin, and she knew 4 languages.
Wow.
Fluently, played the piano, knew 4 languages, standard.
Well,
and over there, and so it's just there's just a difference. They're different countries, different needs.
Well, I think it would be good to see at least Spanish emphasized, especially in Idaho as a second language, because we have such a Hispanic influence. But
those are good questions. I mean, Canada, we have French, right?
Yeah.
And I had to learn French, and in Western Canada, there's not a lot of French. There's mostly Russian, Ukrainian,
that's interesting.
Polish. There's German, but there's not Swedes, but not a lot of French. But we still had to take 2 years of French.
Now, your family basically, once they were emancipated, I'm going to get back to this because this is fascinating. They moved to Oklahoma, so they were entrepreneurs. They were the backbone. They were the citizen farmer, basically, producing food.
Yep.
They were allocating resources, managing time.
Managing their money,
Gambling. In fact, I've talked to some farmers. They say, you don't have to go to Las Vegas to gamble. Just get a farm out here, and it's the biggest, dice shoot there is.
I don't know about those things. So.
But I'm just saying that there's a lot of risk involved. You have to.
There's a lot of risk being a farmer, and there still is. Obviously, there's as a farmer, there's good years, bad years. Now, the farmers are doing a little bit better overall because of, basically an expanding population demand. There's a lot of demand for food. There's been some droughts and floods and things like that
around the world.
So around the world, which has driven up, prices for cattle, prices for grain,
which gives them a better return on their investment.
Yeah, better. It's a better life for a farmer than it has been.
Well, now I've read some books and I've seen documentaries where in the South, where the people where African Americans were raised as slaves, and they're a lot of times. In fact, one of the things that you gave me to read, one of your family members was a little girl, and she was bought right on the spot in a wagon and ripped away from her mom's arms and sold. So they didn't have a lot of say-so in the way that they were treated or whatever. And the point I'm getting to is the parent, it was usually the mom that raised the kids. Dad was either not around or sold and took off. And they see a lot of the problems that the blacks have to face in America is that they didn't have the role model of a good, strong male figure. They were always making it up to where they weren't really. They were given in a situation that they didn't have a lot of chance to better themselves as slaves. And I was just wondering, with your opportunity going to Canada and being in a different environment, would you say that had a lot of encouragement for you to do better?
I just think that the influence is a lot different. I mean, I grew up, there's some racism in Canada too. It's not without racism, but I never saw a lot of it. I saw a lot more in the U.S. and
did you notice the difference?
I noticed it. Yeah, I noticed a different. Definitely noticed a difference. And it was hard for me, being a football player in the U.S., where you're not, you weren't fully accepted. It's sometimes, I have white friends, I have black friends, African American friends, but you were kind of out there because you weren't from Chicago, and you weren't from L.A., and you weren't from Seattle, and you weren't from Dallas. You were from a farming town in Saskatchewan. So the white guys were like, what's this, And I grew up fishing and hunting, and skiing and swimming at the lake and water skiing. That's how I grew up. And then the African Americans were like, what is this guy? So it was a tough for me as a person to fit into. I didn't really fit into either one of their models that they felt I should fit into.
I hate it when people put me in pegs.
So, I just knew what I knew and what I grew up with. And that's what you see. I think that's not portrayed on TV as much as it should be. It's not portrayed,
In what way, you mean?
I mean, you watch TV, what do you see? You see the city, and, you don't see an African American riding horseback and hunting and fishing, and you don't see so much of that stuff, when that's commonplace around the country. I'm sure I'm not the only one that does those things.
Oh, no, I'm sure you're not.
So
I know a lot of Hispanics seem to like hunting and fish, but you never see that on TV either,
So it's just the portrayal from the United States. I think that's one of the biggest
Stereotyping almost?
Stereotype. I think that's one of the biggest obstacles is, I live in Kuna, right? And so, you don't necessarily expect an African Canadian American to be a financial guy in a small town like that. It's predominantly white. I mean,
yeah, you don't expect to see him, a businessman and a financier, a person that's supposed to be with finance. You don't really expect him. No offense, but you expect him to be a custodian, maybe own their own custodial business.
Yeah, it's just there's just those stereotypes, and so I think that's one of the things that America has got to, is overcoming. Is that it was always the American dream, right? You can do anything, right? You learned it as a kid. You get Obama as president. It was a huge hurdle for the African Americans to say, hey, that's the highest job in America.
And he's got it.
Perceived, and he's got the job. It means I can do anything now.
Yeah.
If I can be president, I can do anything now.
So you think there was kind of a lid on
a ceiling? I'd say there definitely was. That's my perspective, and I'm more of a person as my perspective is, with hard work and determination, you can do whatever.
You want.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, black, white, yellow, red, whatever. It's up to you to accomplish your goals. But I think America, in a sense, is one of the best places to accomplish those goals. So
that is something then. Well, there was something I was going to say about that, but I know a gentleman. Well, I know a lady I was visiting with when I was younger, and she said she dated Mexicans, right? Only Mexicans, because she wanted to prove to her dad she wasn't prejudiced. And they were beating her up and go, I wouldn't mind you dating Mexicans. I just would have you not date someone that beats you up all the time. But then I had a friend that was Sami, and he was from Sudan. And of course, he's African American. Well, he's African, and now he's an American. And this one lady would not go out with him just because he's black. He was nice, he was courteous, he was thoughtful. Now, he was supposed to be married, and he didn't know if his wife was live or not, and I could see how that might be a problem. But just because of his skin pigment,
Well, everybody's got their preferences. It's not for me to say. Obviously, in that situation, who's to say? But I mean, anybody that doesn't treat anybody properly, I mean, I wouldn't want to associate with anybody like that.
Well, I did meet a young lady that was Caucasian, and this gentleman was from Africa, and they seemed to get along great. And I said, that's very good,
Well, I don't know. My wife is Caucasian, and she's from Caldwell, so.
I think that's recommendable.
I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, it's in this world. It's just tough to find. Sometimes it's tough to find somebody, and you shouldn't necessarily put it on their race or what their race is.
Well, I would judge a person on their behavior, not on something that they can't control.
That's how I feel.
That's how I feel. But I did want to say goodbye to Wendy, I guess, and I've got a little pagan. See, I'm an Episcopalian, and I can Christianize anything. Like we Christianized Christmas. That was really a pagan holiday.
I have no idea.
But I just want to say goodbye and say, may God grant Wendy happiness and the source of happiness. May God grant Wendy freedom from suffering and the source of suffering. May God grant Wendy happiness and beyond suffering, and may God grant Wendy rest in equanimity and freedom of hatred. Oh, that's nice. I like that.
That is nice.
Yeah. So anyhow, hopefully we'll be friends again sometime. Now, do you like to read very much?
I don't. I read a lot of business things, and then I read a lot of news.
That's good. I like
but
documentaries.
I do watch a lot of biography and things like that, and National Geographic, those types of things.
Do you have a personal philosophy by any chance? Here's a book for you to read. Do you need to title that?
A Guide to the Good Life.
Yeah, that's American Stoicism. I always consider myself a Stoic, and it's not so much biting the bullet. It's just a way to be more tranquil. Of course, I had a boss once that said I was worrying too much, so she recommended me to go to a Buddhist church that are called Asanga, and she said, she picked this out. This is her opinion of me. Look, it says, Buddhists for dummies. Oh. So I no longer work there. I quit. No, she's a nice lady. But anyhow, I've been going to Asanga, and then, of course, my Episcopal church, I can do anything I want. I can go to Buddhist church and study Stoicism. We don't have any problem with that. This is a good book. If anybody ever wants to read it, it's just The Heart of the Buddha Teachings by Thich Nhat Hanh. I like that book, and of course there's another Stoic book. They seem to complement each other.
I think my great-grandparents were Baptist.
Really?
Yeah, so, I don't know. I don't think those books were around when they were around.
Well, actually, these are based on books that were written back in about 500 AD or 500 BC, but it's interpreted more like a positive form of philosophy. It's Americanized, We Americanize everything.
That's good.
Yeah, and if what I like about the Episcopal Church, if our Archbishop of Canterbury, that's in England, right? Mm-hmm. He's equal to our Pope. If he didn't like what I was doing, he can always excommunicate me. I wouldn't mind. We were allowed to choose. It's like I'm a Democrat. I'm allowed to choose what I wanted to support.
And that's the beauty of America, is that you can make those choices.
We can decide.
You have that freedom.
But now Canada has the same thing up there. They have the freedoms. Do they have a constitution?
No constitution in Canada, which is unfortunate.
You think there's a benefit for that right now?
I think there's definitely a benefit for constitution, but I think that in the U.S., that's why people want to live in the U.S. There's a lot of people complain about the U.S., but people want to live here. Yes, so they want to live here more than they complain from afar about the U.S., but they want to live, they model after the U.S. continually and want to live in the U.S. Great country.
It is a great country. How about universal health in Canada?
That's all I ever had. If I broke my finger, I went to the hospital. If I, need stitches, they got stitches.
And
I mean, I never thought about it until I came to healthcare until I came
can
to
you
this.
see the benefits of it then? I mean, I would like to have it
Well,
myself.
they fixed my finger.
That's good. Well, it's time to start winding this up. I want to, again, thank you very much
Hey,
for
thank you
coming.
so
I
much,
hope you
John.
enjoyed it.
Yep.
It was fun for me, of course. I want to be sure to have everybody support TV. There's some legislation going on. We need to get it stopped in committee if it hasn't gone out of committee. We would like to also thank all the crew people that help us with this TV show. So I want to say thanks a lot. And again, you want to put my name underneath me. Anyhow, I'm John again, and this is Spud TV. Everything in Idaho with Bud on it, or anything in Kuna. What's your from Kuna? Oh, I got my hair cut from that country cut. Doesn't it look nice? The last one I had real strong hair. I'd like to get her interviewed. I think that would be cool.
All in time.
Yeah, what's that? Yeah, hopefully. So if we can keep this up, everything in Kuna with gravy on it. Thanks a lot. Supporting everybody. I think we're still on the air.
Are we still on the air? All right.
So now, how did you?